My life just seems empty. What's the point of anything? It wouldn't make any difference if I wasn't here. Now, those are common sentiments indicative of a depressed mindset, but they also indicate a sense of meaninglessness and purposelessness. At their heart may lie a sense that life has little value or meaning. And it often seems to me that once we connect to a purpose bigger than ourselves, suffering, privations, indignities, and difficulties fade as they begin to play second fiddle to our primary cause, which is above and beyond the self. The athlete, Emil Therapeutic, the long-distance runner and multiple Olympic gold medal winner, had a great sense of purpose, which was to be the best and make his country proud. He said of his training, "Is it raining? That doesn't matter. Am I tired? That doesn't matter either. Then willpower will be no problem." When we feel I matters less than we, or perhaps an abstract idea like truth or good, then personal problems feel less important, or even a necessary part of the journey, like potholes on the road to an important destination. There's an obvious caveat here though, and of course a profound sense of transcendental meaning is one of the attractions of cults, in which a sense of purpose is used as a tool to manipulate. The desire to change the world and serve a higher purpose than the self drove many Nazi youth members in the 1930s and Red Guard nationalist students in 1960s Maoist China. Both movements were widely destructive, and yet just because a human drive can be misdirected doesn't mean it isn't valid. The same biological mechanisms that glugs down neat gin also serves to keep us alive when we drink water. As when we meet any primal human need, nature rewards us by conferring benefits. A strong sense of meaning and purpose confers all kinds of mental and physical health benefits, even helping us live longer. So what is the opposite? What does a lack of a sense of meaning do to us? Often our clients are aware of their depression. They know they feel bad, but may not really be aware of a general sense of meaninglessness beneath the depression. If a strong sense of depression is primarily a self-focused condition, and I describe it in this way not judgmentally but descriptively, then it follows that living with a strong sense of meaning and purpose is a natural antidepressant. Purpose in life entails a more active engagement with life and can help us cope with suffering because we're in the service of something greater than ourselves. But when life starts to feel meaningless, every day might feel hard to get through. One client described her life as being stuck at sea in a sailboat with no wind at all and no change in scenery. Another talked of the hopeless drudgery of day-to-day existence, but the connection between depression and a sense of meaning may be a two-way street. Depression may be in part caused by a lack of sense of meaning, and in turn, rumination on that meaninglessness, but it may also make what once felt meaningful no longer feel meaningful or significant. We hear depressed people plaintively say such things as, "I used to love my work, but even that doesn't interest me anymore." But what determines what may feel meaningful to us in the first place? We're interested in and motivated by what feels meaningful to us, but the question remains, what is a meaningful life? Paradoxically, trying to live more meaningfully because it will make us happier is still about service to the self rather than something other. We'll only really benefit when we care less about how we benefit and more about how we can deliver benefit to the meaningful focus of our lives. In the Western world, religion as a focus of meaning has largely fallen away. So it may be that we're living in a meaningless epidemic of sorts. Meaning may be found in work, family, friends, religion, politics, in development of the self in some way, in a spiritual meaning, in helping make the world a better place, in contributing. It's even been found that simply doing a manageable task, something you're good at, that has a beginning, middle and an end, like mowing the lawn or baking a cake has a measurable benefit on your sense of well-being. We've made a difference, however small, to the fabric of reality. This is one reason why behavioral therapy can be so powerful. When we feel we're needed, that we have value, and we're helping the wider world, then a sense of meaning starts to flow and inhabit our very being. When we see a sense of meaning as both an amplification of the self that partakes of wider realities, but also a minimization of the self that focuses narrowly on what it perceives as self-interest, then the following story as it relates to meaning makes sense. Once upon a time, in the 1950s, Dr. Milton Erickson paid a visit to a patient. Now, she was wealthy and unmarried and had no children, and she was residing alone in a vast inherited estate. Stricken by illness and confined to a wheelchair, she found herself sinking into the depths of despair. Her days felt empty, purposeless, and devoid of meaning, and she pondered whether the world would even notice her absence, considering her isolated existence. Once an active member of her church and community, she now shied away from attending services, feeling embarrassed by her wheelchair and reluctant to draw attention to herself. Perhaps, she contemplated, it was time to bid farewell permanently to life. During Dr. Erickson's visit, as they roamed through the grand yet desolate home, they eventually reached the greenhouse where she tended to African violets, a challenging endeavor for the uninitiated gardener. As she animatedly described her cultivation process, Dr. Erickson observed a spark of vitality and fervor in her demeanor, a glimpse of her former self. Having grown up on a farm, he recognized the dedication and skill required for such horticultural pursuits. In that moment, he saw a new path for her. With compassion and insight, Dr. Erickson confronted her with a truth she hadn't considered. She was neglecting her duty as a good Christian. Despite her wealth and ample leisure, she had yet to share her talents with the world. Though it was undoubtedly a shocking way to address a woman of her stature in 1950s America, Erickson didn't shy away from delivering his message. He offered her a simple yet profound directive. Compile a list of significant milestone events for your church community, births, deaths, and so forth. For each occasion, propagate one of your African violets, pot it thoughtfully, and have your chauffeur deliver it. Now, this woman did as Erickson requested, and bit by bit, the depression cracked apart and broke away. Years later, upon her passing, the Milwaukee newspapers eulogized her as the beloved African Violet Queen of Milwaukee. Her legacy was one not of isolation and self-pity, but of warmth and generosity, an active part in the community, illuminating the lives of many through her simple act of sharing, letting her light shine brightly beyond the confines of her greenhouse, as Erickson himself put it. Now, Milton Erickson had discerned that what she lacked, what she hungered for without knowing it, was meaning. So how can we help our clients find a greater sense of meaning and therefore purpose in their lives? Well, step one, ask them about their values. Meaning is tied to values. Something is only meaningful to us if we connect it to what we feel is important, of course. If we value success and personal development, then the pursuit of success will feel meaningful to us. Likewise, if we value health and fitness, then eating well and working out will also feel meaningful to us, up to a point. But to try to make our lives solely about improving things for ourselves may, because we're social and perhaps spiritual creatures, naturally dry out a sense of meaning through the years. Being fit can feel extremely meaningful to a 20-year-old, but less so at 40, though still important. Maybe a wider sense of meaning needs to be found as we progress through life. So what wider values does your client have? If they value kindness, then spreading kindness may feel purposeful to them. If discovery or societal improvement is a value they hold, in what possible way might your client contribute to that? You could present them with a list of values, like knowledge, skills, community, friendship, education, family, and so on, and ask them to pick the ones that are most meaningful to them, that resonate. Ask how and why those values resonate with them. Then work with them to discover ways in which they can begin to live those values more fully. Along with values, we can ask clients about their passions, past and present, and also help to identify their strengths and talents, which, when utilized optimally, will provide a greater sense of meaning for them. After all, few things drain a sense of meaning faster than a sense that our talents are being wasted. Next, we can work to recapture the actual sensation of greater meaning. Step 2, ask them what has been meaningful and revivify it. So I worked with one guy, Sam, who spoke wistfully of what it had felt like to start his business and see it grow 20 years before. And how he had loved bringing on his whole team and seeing them benefit as well as himself from the burgeoning business. Now, life had grown stale since then. He was uncomfortably comfortable. Managers ran the business for him now, and he'd become bored, and the spark had gone from his life. So I asked in detail about times when life had felt shot through with meaning for him, and he described such times in detail for me. I then used hypnosis to regress him back to those times to really experience all those purposeful feelings once more. When it was easy to get out of bed and life felt like one big rich adventure for him. And he seemed to bloom and expand with positivity even as I sat with him. And I further suggested during our hypnotic work that he was going to find something new which would give him a very powerful sense of meaning in the future. Now, 3 weeks later, he told me that he'd started raising money for a children's hospice. It was taking up a lot of his time, but he absolutely loved it. Sometimes remembering what meaning feels like can help us find meaning again. And finally, we can remind our clients that no man or woman is an island. So step 3, build connection. It's almost a cliche to say that money doesn't buy happiness, but it might be truer to say that if the pursuit of financial success can, and for many does, feel meaningful to us, then the wealth and success itself, once attained, can often start to feel meaningless after a while. An 85-year Harvard study found that relationships, not success and money, are what boosts our well-being and life satisfactions. And I suspect that this has more to do with a sense of deep meaning than anything else. So consider this: a Gallup poll carried out over 139 countries discovered that having given to a charitable cause in the previous month had a similar effect on happiness as a doubling of household income. And it's certainly easier to do. Now, this held true not just for higher income countries where giving to charity is more affordable, but everywhere. And the correlation also existed for other forms of helping, such as volunteering and being helpful towards neighbors and colleagues. So I'm not suggesting you necessarily tell your clients to start giving to charity. After all, they may be very hard up for cash. And in fact, I suspect doing something for others may enhance a sense of living meaningfully more than simply signing a check. I've certainly asked clients to, alongside gratitude exercises, do 3 things for other people before the next session. So for one man, this meant going to the store for an elderly neighbour, volunteering at his kids' school sports day, and simply helping an old man across a busy road. And presumably the man actually wanted to cross the road. So thanks to my directive, he started looking for ways to help others. He was on the lookout to be more helpful. Now, we often assume that connecting to other people means more socializing and going to parties and being the life and soul and so on. But what bonds people together more deeply is mutual support. And in fact, people tend to like us more when we let them help us, the so-called Ben Franklin effect. Sharing is at the heart of intimacy. We share ideas, attitudes, and even our bodies with those we love. And of course, depression can be complex, and just getting depressed clients to help other people and make connections may not work as a sole therapeutic intervention, or too early on, as it seemed to with the African Violet Queen of Erickson's case. There may be many steps to take with our clients before life can start to feel at all meaningful for them again. But it is also true to say that meaning comes through action. And action that helps lighten the load of others is profoundly meaningful.